amazing. His love is never ending. Beyond imagination. He's worth our celebration. He deserves the loudest voice. I don't know about you, but I came here today to celebrate God in every song we sing and every game we play. We celebrate God, always amazing. His love will never end. So everybody in this place, celebrate God.
Hi Naomi.
Hi Andy.
What's you looking at?
I'm looking at our birth certificates. When we were celebrating Josiah's birthday a few weeks ago, I remembered when we took him to get his name registered.
Oh yeah. So we'd chosen his name and we had to register it to make it official.
Oh,
hello.
I know. Today's story starts off with the line, "Do you know what your name means?" So I thought I'd think about our names. Now my name, Naomi, means pleasant. Do you know what your name means?
I do. Andrew, or Andy, means manly. And I've got a middle name as well, and that's Francis. And that's named after my dad, who's Francis, and he's known as Frank.
I've got a middle name too. My name is Naomi Christine. I was called that because my parents liked it. I wonder why you were called your name. If you don't know, perhaps you could ask your parents.
Yeah. So we've got two names each, and in the Bible, God and Jesus have lots of names.
Today, we're going to be looking at the prophet Isaiah, who wrote about Jesus before he was even born. He lived 700 years before Jesus. He wrote about the future.
Wow, 700 years, that's a long time. It can be hard even to think what the future's like in 50 years. Can you imagine what it's going to be like in 50 years' time?
I wonder if we'll all have jetpacks to fly around in and we won't even need cars anymore.
Yeah.
What about you?
I don't know. Maybe they'll do away with food and we'll just have little tablets to eat to give us everything that we need.
What if we rewind the clock 50 years to 1970? That was even before we were born, Andy.
Only just.
The world was a bit different then. I wonder, your toolbox, do you think it's got anything in it that will help us think about what the world was like before or what it's like now?
Probably.
Should we have a look?
Yeah, I just happen to have it down here.
Fantastic.
Give us some space.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. All right. Trusty toolbox, what's in here? Oh, first thing, a remote control.
Now, I remember when I was a little girl, we didn't have remote controls. We had to get up out of our chair to turn the channels over on the telly.
Yeah, and we only had, what, 3 channels to choose from?
Yep.
Oh, hardships. The next thing toolbox has got...
Oh, an aeroplane.
Aeroplane. So, this is going back a bit further than 50 years, because we've only had powered flight for 150 years. So can you imagine what people who invented aeroplanes and even flew ones in the war could imagine that aeroplanes would be like nowadays, how big they are and all the things that you can do on them and how comfortable they are. What else? Ooh, a music player.
Now, when our parents had music, they had to listen to record players. They were quite big and you'd never be able to put it in your pocket and carry it around with you.
And that's got all of our CDs on and room for loads and loads more.
Wow, how different.
Wow. Oh, last thing.
Yeah.
A tablet.
I bet a lot of you have got one of these in your house.
Yeah. And these are really powerful. You can play games, watch films, look at the internet, listen to music, and all of that in something that's so small.
Yeah, and back in the 1970s, some of the computers were so big they took up a whole room. People couldn't even imagine owning a computer, let alone one so small that you could put in your bag and take on holiday with you.
Oh, it's incredible. So even 50 years ago, people couldn't perhaps imagine some of these things, And so it's going to be really hard to think what 50 years' time is going to be like. Shall we read today's story and find out what Isaiah predicted?
Operation No More Tears. Do you know what your name means? Well, there was once a man called Isaiah, and his name meant God to the rescue. That might sound like a bit of a funny name to you, but it was just the right name for Isaiah because God had a special job for Isaiah. You see, Isaiah's job was to listen to God and then tell the people what he heard. Now, God let Isaiah know a secret. God was going to mend his broken world. He showed Isaiah his secret rescue plan, Operation No More Tears. This was the message God gave Isaiah. It was like a letter God wrote to his children. Isaiah is going to read it to you.
He will be a king, but he won't live in a palace, and he won't have lots of money. He will be poor, and he will be a servant. But this king will heal the whole world. He will be a hero. He will fight for his people and rescue them from their enemies. But he won't have big armies, and he won't fight with swords. He will make the blind see. He will make the lame leap like deer. He will make everything the way it was always meant to be. But people will hate him, and they will listen to him. He will be like a lamb. He will suffer and die. It's the secret rescue plan we made from before the beginning of the world. It's the only way to get you back. But he won't stay dead. I will make him live again. And one day, when he comes back to rule forever, the mountains and the trees will dance and sing for joy. The earth will shout out loud. His fame will fill the whole earth as the waters cover the sea. Everything sad will come untrue. Even death is going to die, and he will wipe away every tear from every eye. Yes, the rescuer will come. Look for him, watch for him, wait for him. He will come. I promise. Love God.
Poor Isaiah. He read God's letter over and over to God's people, but no one listened to him at all, ever. They didn't want to hear God's promise. They didn't believe it. Did it sound maybe too good to be true? A story that ends happily ever after? Well, it does sound like a fairy tale, doesn't it? And anyone will quickly tell you fairy tales aren't true. Or are they? Do you think that Isaiah's letter was a fairy tale, or was it true? I think we need to find out more. I'm going to interview Isaiah to find out a little bit more about the secret rescue plan. Hello, Isaiah.
Hello, Naomi.
Tell me, Isaiah, what do you do?
Thank you for asking. I'm a prophet.
So, what does a prophet do?
Well, the biggest part of my job is to listen to God and tell the people what God said.
Do you like being a prophet?
Well, it's very hard work, and it can be very sad when people don't listen to me, and that happens a lot.
Why don't people believe you?
Well, sometimes people don't want to listen to what God has to say, and because it's talking about the future, people just don't believe me.
Can you tell the future?
Oh, no. But God knows the future, and sometimes he tells me so I can tell the people.
So what did God tell you about the future?
Ah, I knew you were going to ask me that. kidding. Now, the really exciting thing is about God's rescue plan, about how he's going to rescue us and fix everything in a broken world.
Why do we need a rescue plan?
People are always running away from God. People sin all of the time. But God's rescue plan is about making everything that's sinful and bad come untrue.
What does it mean for everything sad to come untrue?
It means there'll be no more sadness, fear, tears, pain or death. Everything will be perfect again like it was in the beginning when God created the world.
How will that happen?
The rescue plan is all about someone called a rescuer and a king and a servant and a light and a lamb and a shepherd and so many other names. This rescuer, king, servant, light, lamb, shepherd, that's hard to say, will come to earth and do many amazing things. But then he'll suffer and die.
Why will he die?
He's going to die instead of God's people. He's going to die in their place. But God's going to make him alive again. And that's how this king, servant, shepherd, rescuer is going to save God's people.
Who is this rescuer, king, servant, light, lamb, shepherd?
That is a great question. But I think it's a question that you should answer.
Thank you, Isaiah. That was an interesting question. I wonder, did you get all those names at home? Now, before we answer the question, we're going to sing a song. And this is a song that we sometimes sing at church. And it mentions lots more names.
The boys and girls sing different parts in the chorus. So let's see if you can join in.